Every day, you wake up as your own boss, making your own way. Every day, you continue your journey to change the world, your team, and yourself. Every day, you encourage, congratulate, celebrate, and reach toward your goal of being the best and providing the best. The Build Your Best Business Show is for you. The real stories of building a business from other owners and founders along the journey. Find the support and advice you need to successfully start, grow, manage, and exit your business. What are you going to do today to build your best business?
To Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. Build Your Best Business focuses on the entrepreneurial journey. What does it take to successfully start, manage, grow, and eventually exit a business? Today, we're going to talk about that category of both kind of starting a business, because my guest today has done that, but also when you have started your business, when do you decide that it's time maybe to stop working out of your basement or out of your garage, wherever it is that you might be working? So my guest today is Bryant Cornett. He is the president of DTSpade. So tell us a little bit about what DTSpade does.
Thanks, Eric. This is really, really great. Kind of exciting to be here. So Dudley Thomas Spade.
That's where the name comes from.
Right? And we call it DTSpade, is a specialized real estate firm.
Okay.
And we help our clients imagine a city as if everything was on the table, as if you could build and enforce and grow those things that make a city great, and you could fix those things that break a city. And we do that through our process and through the research that we put together. And then because we only represent those companies that heal us, that govern over us, and that direct the flow of capital in our markets, we get a chance to build that city of our clients' dreams.
Okay, so tell me about that again. So heal, and what are the three categories?
We represent healthcare organizations.
Healthcare, okay.
Governments.
Yeah. And
what we call pre-equity groups that have some sort of equity event in their future. They're going to sell some shares. They're going to raise some money. They're going to float some debt. And so because we represent how better to affect a community than those three things. And my background is commercial real estate. So for 14 years, I've been representing tenants.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks of themselves as a tenant, but
right.
Landlords do. Tenants in real estate transactions.
Okay.
And so that's the little kind of skill that I have, and I get to bring that to solving these huge things that kill us,
right?
Frankly, that break us.
Well, and it's funny because each industries have different types of languages.
You're right.
Getting into kind of commercial real estate, that's definitely has its own kind of language to how it works and what it does. So talk to me about how you decided to use this as your focus, right? Because this is a relatively new company.
It is
a couple of years old.
It is, yeah. I was at a conference almost 2 years ago, a month ago. Yeah. And a speaker stood up from the Luck companies. They sell crushed stone. Which,
okay. Yeah.
Talk about a tough business.
Right.
In fact, that's cruel and unusual punishment actually in the penal system. But this guy stands up and he says, we were making tons of money and we were growing this company, but we were totally dysfunctional. And one of the things that he took away from it is if you keep a person in a position that they're not skilled for, that doesn't match their giftedness, you risk wasting their life.
Right.
And that was a double-edged spear for me because on the front end, I was in an organization where it wasn't really my job to move people into their giftedness. But on the other side, was I wasting my life? Could I do this?
Right.
Could I create an organization that was about something bigger, something better, that engaged tens or hundreds or even 1,000 people in their giftedness to combat those things that again break us?
So there's a difference between having that mindset, and a lot of people do. They're like, I'm getting in my car every day and I'm going to something that I don't like or love, and it's a reason why people may become entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the elevator every day.
Yeah, right, exactly. There's a difference between that and then deciding that you're going to go and do something about it. So in that mission or vision statement, did you sit down and draw it on a napkin? Did you bring some people? Like, how did you come up with this as the business itself?
Well, for me, there's a little bit of a longer story, but it started with this faith walk that I had, which by the age of probably 33, 34, I look back and I realized that I'd gotten all these things that I thought would, if I had that, then I'll be happy. If I only could get this many hits or this many clients, or if I could get that, and I was still just empty.
Yeah.
And so that began a very earnest faith walk that was kind of a different story. And so I charged that mountain, right? And then on the way back down, I was sort of in that valley, and I was waiting for patiently for, what's that next thing? What's that thing that's going to take out the bifurcation in my life? So I had this kind of spiritual mission that felt so important.
Yeah.
And I had this work that, paid for things. And I had a family that felt important too. And I could pick 1.5 of those, to really do well. I mean, I think everybody feels that.
Right.
And so this was, it was that kind of time in the desert, that dryness, that sort of waiting, and sitting in that conference for the first time. I got, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
This is a way to sort of integrate those different things that you care about, and to help others integrate that into one go forward.
And so then making the choice of the 3 areas that you've decided to go after and to work within as companies, is it from your experience of having worked with them in the past, or just because you felt like those were the ones, because you talk about building the city that you envision?
Yeah.
And yesterday I was at a set of meetings in Atlanta, not known for our rapid transit system. I was able to use MARTA the whole day. It was awesome.
Wow.
Right? Once a month.
Yeah.
The stars align, and every meeting happens to be just around the train. So I can leave my car and go to where I want to go. I wish I could do that every day.
Yeah.
I don't need to sit in my car. I can get a lot done. So as I talk about or envision a better place, if I think about Atlanta, I think about the ability to get from place to place and not sit in traffic. We waste so much time. So your conscious decision to go after groups that could make an impact in our lives, like that's
I wish I was that wise. I think
Okay.
that you go down a path, and then you begin to look back, and you try to get, what are the patterns that I can recognize in the relationships that I have, or the clients that I have. How do I narrow that?
Yeah.
The biggest tip, if people just want one thing to take away from this, it's you cannot be too narrow in your focus.
Right.
It's the thing that bankrupts, I think, 100% of startups or young companies. It's, well, I'm open to I'm a generalist. I can sort of, and I'll tell you that hyper focus really makes it so that you can help. So I started looking back, and I started seeing, well, what are some patterns within clients? What could we build better systems for? What could we build better patterns for?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've got just category dominance is dentists.
Okay.
So we represent probably 40% of the dentists in our market, and we're growing into other markets. So we can do things, because we're not going to do 1 or 2 this year. We'll do 20 or 30 this year. We can do things that no one else can compete on in that vertical.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting piece of advice that I've heard from salespeople too. So salespeople will talk about going to a networking event, and the more specific you are, the more likely you are to get that referral. If you say, I work with dentists, then someone can think of a dentist. Mm-hmm. But if you say, I work with businesses, too general, right? Mm-hmm. And they can make their own leap that, oh, well, if you could help out dentists, well, maybe you could also help out doctors, right? So they can think of it that way. So it's a good piece of feedback to say, this is really specifically what we're looking for. Did that help you find those first customers? Because as you start a business, that's often the first thing, right? Is to identify who your customer is and get them to take a risk. Or were you able, because you already had the background, to just
the starting a business is just a street fight. I mean, it is just, how do you get in there? How do you get in there? How do you get a client or two?
Right.
And so to be able to say that you can focus sort of straight out of the gate, that might be a luxury.
Right.
But I would encourage people to at least have your eye on something. When I first started in the business, I had a meeting with Charlie Ackerman, who's one of the oldest, greatest developers. He much of the development in the Southeast is credited to him being able to bring in European money, which no one had thought of at that time.
Right.
And he said, and I laid out my plan for him, and I was expecting him to, maybe give me some pointers or tell me it was great or terrible. And he said, and he essentially said, just have a direction. Just the velocity of movement lets you course correct while you're going through it. So while startups need to have that focus, it's okay to pick up to chase a few rabbits.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the velocity thing that you're talking about too is doing a little bit every day. It's the famous, how do you eat an elephant, a bite at a time. It's like, and the problem we have, and I say this all the time, is this pop culture mentality and the instant everything. So I can pick up my phone and order an Uber and it shows up, or go pick up food and it's done in 5 minutes, and we sort of become impatient if it takes too long. And that business world, it's that first 3 years, first 1,000 days, it is a street fight.
But that's a gift too. I think that while it can make us impatient, if it could be systematized, if it could be made into an app,
Absolutely.
then they don't need you anymore.
Right.
And so this kind of idea of meaningful work, we were built for meaningful work.
Right.
And so the people going up in the elevator with dead eyes, we're not built for that.
Yeah, it's that mass, the mass produce world, which was the 9 to 5, and you're just a part of the assembly line. I agree with that. And it's the way that you protect yourself over time and continuing to be relevant, because your job, if you know how to reinvent yourself and do new things.
That's right.
Yeah, and so in the starting of your own, what have you learned? Like, what's something that you've learned in creating your own entity?
Yeah, so you definitely don't know what you don't know when you're starting. And the thing that's just so stupid, and I think everybody laughs, is I didn't realize how hard it would be to find the people with the specific talents. Yeah. I mean, I was a little Pollyannish in thinking that, well, I can do this, so other people could do this, or I've got an ability to kind of, and so finding those people with those specific skill sets, that with the giftedness that matches our needs and that matches our clients' needs, has been tough.
Yeah, so that kind of talent match. And is it different in commercial real estate than it is maybe just regular? Do you have to find people who know something specifically for commercial real estate? And it sounds like you have even like working with a government, you work with government agencies and others, right? To find that sounds daunting. To me, that sounds daunting, because you're adding a level of what feels like politics on top of the search for a piece of real estate or something that's going to work for them.
Yeah. It definitely can be, but it's another competitive advantage that we have in that a lot of other brokers just would say, well, I'm not really interested in that. I'd rather fish or golf, or I've got other things that I'm going to do. So, but because we're not going to do one this year, we'll do 6 of those. Then it gives us a way to build a platform for it. It gives us a way to build kind of maybe a patience tolerance for it.
Well, it's just been there, done that, like knowing how to navigate those waters.
And we come out the other end and we've done something that literally changes lives.
Yeah. Yeah. My research, I had a research company for years, and one of the research projects we did is the park that's down off of, what is it, right near Perimeter. So they put all these art installations in place that the kids can play on.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And we did the focus groups for that. So it's cool every time I drive by that park, because I see these things that I helped pick. I took the kids through which ones they liked and didn't, and it's kind of fun to see that. Because your work isn't always that tangible, right? That you can drive by a building or a lot or something and say, hey, there's something that we had a part in.
That's right.
Yeah. We're going to go to a commercial break, and when we get back, I want you to give us maybe your top 3, if you can come up with them, things that if I'm an owner of a company and I am working in my garage or, in a kind of a co-working space, let's say, and I think it's now time for me to go look for my own thing. How do I know that? Like, how would you guide me? What would you tell me? What should I consider? And then what does that process look like? So, all right. So we'll be back in just a second. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. We're talking with Bryant Cornett. He is the president of DTSpade. And we'll be back in just a minute. Congratulations, you're your own boss. Now comes the hard part. It's not just about starting a business, it's about successfully managing and growing that business to an eventual exit. And along that entrepreneurial journey, you're going to run into questions and problems that you need quick answers to. Things like, do you need a business plan? How do you read a balance sheet? How do you talk to an investor? When do you bring on a founder? Or what if you're having problems with your partner?
These are the types of things that you run into as you're trying to grow that business to the next level, and they may not be the things you want to share in public with other people. They're the problems and issues that arise that, as I have experienced along my own entrepreneurial journey, that I needed to have someone I could trust to reach out to and have a conversation and get a different perspective. And it was often those short conversations that would be the thing that moved me from where I was to where I needed to be. It's for that reason I created the On-Demand CXO product offering. On-Demand CXO is something that you can use to have a conversation with a trusted advisor about what's going on in your business. We do a 1-hour phone call to talk about your business, talk about your objectives, and understand what it's going to take to move you from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. From there, you have ongoing access to a Slack channel to ask me questions in private about what's going on in your business so that I can provide some advice or connections to my network to individuals who can help you solve against that problem. You will also have access to my Facebook page, which is full of other entrepreneurs who are along the same journey, to have more broad conversations, things that you trust and would talk about in a networking event. But when you need to go and have that conversation with a trusted advisor, you will have the ability to have a conversation with me in a place that's safe, completely anonymous, and unbiased. I want to see you succeed and build your very best business.
Are you looking to grow your business? Maybe you know exactly who you need to get in contact with, you're just not sure how to go about it. Podcasting is your answer, and at Briller Media, we make you the expert. We have state-of-the-art equipment to record your audio and video podcast. Plus, we take care of everything on the back end. We schedule your guests, upload your podcast to the top podcasting platforms, and we push out your show on social media, promoting you, your business, and your guest's business. How could they ignore your pitch after that? Briller Media, we make you look brilliant.
Sometimes, life gives you crazy ideas. Chase them.
And we're back. You're listening to Build Your Best Business. I'm your host, Eric Holtzclaw. We're talking with Bryant Cornett. Almost just called you Brian. Bryant Cornett.
I don't even notice anymore.
President. Yeah. Well, at Starbucks, they call me Aaron all the time. And I'm clearly saying E-R-I-C. Like that's the only hard consonant in my name. Anyway, okay. Moving on. He's president of DTSpade. Works with specifically organizations that make an impact on others. Would you say that?
Yeah.
Like their lives, to help them find real estate and to, take them through that whole process, which can be a daunting process if you've never been through it before. So if I've got someone listening and, they've got 2 or 3 employees, they feel like they've kind of outgrown the co-working space, they need their own place. If that person gives you a call or runs into you at a networking event, what are some of the things you would tell them?
Yeah. So it seems like nothing would be more natural to connect with community than real estate, but our process in our industry couldn't be farther from it. And so the first thing that I would tell them to do is imagine something incredible. And not just, oh, I want this sort of wood floor and I want it to look like this, but think about outside. Think about what growing your business does for your employees. Think about when that employee goes home, what does that look like? What would they be doing if they weren't coming into your office? How long does it take them to get between point A and point B? And what does an extra 20 minutes in a day look like? Does it mean they get to play with a kid? Does it mean that they get to volunteer in something that they care about? So part of our process is really helping to stretch that imagination piece on what could this space do? What could this space be? So just daydreaming a little bit is the first, and that's easy for a business owner and especially on your first space, because you have all these dreams for it, and you have all these thoughts. The second thing is really kind of understanding who you are. So our Are you a cool company that's running a podcast? Are you a marketing organization? Who are the people that you're going to attract? Will they care about an extra $3 a foot?
Right.
The location's another issue. So I think we'll talk about it some later, but really understanding what is the neighborhood and the area that you're going into. Do you have enough data on that? For a 2 or 3 person company, okay, it probably doesn't matter. You can find that. But if you're hiring 200 employees that need to have a certain skill set, do those people even exist there?
Yeah.
Most real estate companies will start with the supply. They'll send you a report, and they'll
Supply
say,
meaning like buildings available.
here's the buildings,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
And here's pretty pictures of them, and here's how much they cost. And you immediately take out all the most expensive ones and probably the least expensive ones, and you sort of begin to look at the middle. Well, that's really our fourth step in a significant requirement. We're first looking at where's your competition. Some people need to be near their competition. Some people need to be far away.
Right.
The second thing that we look at is what's the consumer doing. So if that matters to your business, and every business has clients, are you near them? Are they the type of consumer that you need for this sort of organization? And then third is staffing. So we've gone through 3 levels of information before we sort of get there. Now, that's probably real estate 301 for someone that's kind of just moving into there first, but maybe having a thought on that.
Yeah.
Is the office close to your office, or is it close to everyone else's?
Right.
I'm sorry, is the office close to your home or
Right.
everyone else's home?
Right.
Then the fourth thing or are we on 3 or 4? Anyway, then the last thing that I would tell them to consider is be flexible. And sometimes flexibility means taking more space than you need, and sometimes it means taking a shorter term than you want, which costs you money probably on your upfront build out. But to a business that's growing, to a business that's trying to scale, I do this, and I made this mistake. So I signed a lease for 3,000 feet when we first got started, and I thought, how are we ever going to fill this? And we're 18 months in, and we need more space.
Right.
And I look at what staff costs, and then what staff does, and I look at what real estate does, and it really is a rounding error.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for another $1,000 a month, we could add 30% more capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, I did the same thing. We had the research company, we built a set of labs. We were in 4,000 square feet, and I outgrew it. And we had 5-year lease on it, I think. And so I outgrew it at 3.
Right.
And then we moved into 14,000 square feet. Like
Yep.
it went huge leap, right? And part of it was, and then I probably overbought at that point. You sort of go the other way. Like, okay, I don't want to, I want to make sure I have enough space. I don't want to do this again.
Right.
And it's been interesting thinking about, the onslaught of co-working people kind of remote working. So allowing your space to be a little bit more flexible than it used to be, and even workers looking for that, wanting some kind of space that feels unique. Your space, I've been in it, is unique.
Yeah.
And looks out over the new baseball field.
Yeah. I mean, so that was purposeful for us, because it was an area of the city that was changing. It was a way to sort of be part of that change and to see it. It was also a way to have fun. So we were able to just walk across the street and walk into the Battery and go see a game or grab a beer. So it was a real opportunity change in a building that's sort of a value. There's not many buildings like that have that kind of proximity to what we're doing.
And so as you talk about future, so as we think about the future of work and the future of how people will look at and think about office buildings and space, and there's a lot of buzzwords around it, work, live, play, and proximity to transit, and there's all the bike trails that they're trying to connect and all that. So how do you start to do that evaluation? You said that some of the things are later down the path for your company versus what may be at the beginning. So what would you be advising or telling people to do to start making that decision?
Well, I wasn't smart enough to figure this out, but I got some advice. I think I was at maybe in that program where, in fact, it was that program 2 years ago. So it was a number of speakers that were putting on a program with LeaderCast.
Okay, yeah.
And Andy Stanley, I think it was Andy, said that you need to know the 2 or 3 things that when they happen in your business, it changes everything. And you need to have some sort of a plan. Now, it may not be a good plan. It may not be the actual plan, but you need to at least have visibility on when those things happen, some things are going to change. And so for us, we I don't know that we know those things, but we at least have a list of those things,
right.
and we're keeping an eye on them, and we're investing into them. So I don't know if that was the question to tell you what those things are. I'd be happy to, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, if you want to share some of them, those might be some things that would give other people, because they often have a problem just even coming up with an idea.
Yeah,
of
what does that even look like?
What does that look like?
So, yeah. So the first one is transportation. And I think that, and this may be fairly controversial, but I think that some of the discussion on transportation is a little last week thinking. And the next week thinking is, how do driverless cars, along with the Uberization of resources, when you bring those two things together, what does that look like? And how does that change things? So from my house to here, it took 40 minutes today. So that's kind of unreasonable. I mean, that's a long time.
Right.
And would I like to have been on a train? Yes. But if I had an autonomous vehicle with a complete computer setup and linked to my office, would I have cared if it were an hour and 40 minutes? Probably not.
Yeah, you could get work done.
Right.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, do I have to live in the school district where I live? Do I have to live on the 0.7 acres? Can I, if I wanted 200 acres and I want to live in Buckhead, Georgia instead of Buckhead, Atlanta, could I? So all of a sudden, I think that really is a fundamental shift and a change.
Yeah.
And also the amount of space that we've allocated in our city to parking cars. There's some crazy statistic like cars are parked 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And so what if cars are never parked? What does that look like? Like, how much more dense could this development be if people were just literally getting dropped off and then that car picked up somebody else and sort of went on?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I think another thing is, and this may get a little too technical, but currently companies have operating expenses and capital expenses. And certain companies have a lot of money in one bucket and other companies have a lot of money in the other bucket.
Right.
And I think that there are going to be some financial products and then some renewable energy products and some other things that are going to allow companies to seamlessly convert between those two expenses.
Okay.
And then the last thing, and this is sort of more that we're seeing this already, and we're at the front of it, is data.
Okay. Yeah. So talk to me about data.
So how do companies use data to make better decisions? And some of it. So we were in New Jersey about a month ago talking to a DSO and this a dental service organization, and and they want to grow from 20 locations to 200 locations. There's some things going on in that industry that you get paid for getting bigger.
Right.
And we were able to lay a map of Detroit, which is a market that I've stepped foot in twice. And we were able to show them every dentist in that market. We were able to show them what their revenues were and how many employees every single office had in that market. And then we created a heat map to show them higher than average population density, higher than average sugar consumption, lower than average spending on oral hygiene.
Oh, wow.
And so when you get that granular, when you have that level of data and you can take that market to market in markets that you really know nothing about.
Yeah, that's interesting because, it strikes me, I've spoken with some people before who've selected retail spaces, which of course retail is having a lot of conversations about that. And they apply some of those kind of principles, but other companies don't often think about that. They don't think that way. Retail does. Retail's like, we need to make sure we're putting our store in a place that makes sense. But any business should really be thinking about those types of numbers as they start to decide to expand or place themselves.
Definitely. And so those decisions, dentistry is sort of a retail business. So there is some sort of retailization of it. We've got a healthcare organization, and we created what we called a rural discretionary income map. And we use boat permits, recreational vehicle spending, and airfare, with the idea being that if you own a boat and you spent some money on an RV and you took a couple trips last year, if your knee goes out, you're going to get it fixed.
Right.
Interesting. And so we can having those tools lets organizations make better decisions faster.
Yeah. So that's future for sort of choosing real estate or looking at it, relying more on data and more data being available. What about for your company?
Future for our company?
Yeah. What do you see? Where do you see yourself next?
So our growth is strictly a staffing issue. Finding those right folks. So we're trying. I was telling somebody yesterday, I think our motto might be, let's try lots of stuff.
I sort of like that motto.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it works as long as there's enough lubricant to kind of continue to try it.
And then that when to either continue or stop.
Or stop. Stopping is the hardest part.
Yeah. It depends on who you are. Sometimes people stop too soon, and sometimes people just continue on and on.
Well, it's hard for me.
Yeah.
So we've got an industrial psychologist. That's been really interesting. So we do, at one point in our hiring process, fairly late, we'll do tests. We do these 3 tests. One's a modified disc analysis, one's a passion index, and a judgment index. Modified disc analysis tells this is your natural proclivity, and this is where you're currently flexing, because none of us can live where we, are made. The judgment index, how do you make decisions? Passion index, what's going to drive you to make those decisions? You bring all those 3 together, and then you have effectively, you have our industrial psychologist kind of run through it, and you get a pretty good picture of how that person's going to team, what role that person would play on a team, and how to move through it. As a small company, we still have trouble. We're not on everybody's list when they're looking to kind of get into this industry. And so, one tip I can give is you got to treat staffing like a deal. You've got to list out who are your influencers, who are your decision makers. You've got to dribble on them. You've got to be in conversations with them, and you've got to have a way to connect with them that is meaningful.
Yeah, and I talk about, you go to people think about networking events or other things where you're running into potential customers, but I'm always interviewing on both sides. I'm looking for a customer and potentially an employee, someone that could be a good fit for the team. It's thinking of it both ways. Well, I wish you the most of luck. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so you've been listening to Build Your Best Business. Host Eric Holtzclaw. We've been talking to Bryant Cornett. He's with DTSpade. You can find all the information you need on him in the show notes. And until next time, what are you going to do to build your best business?
Every day, you wake up as your own boss, making your own way. Every day, you continue your journey to change the world, your team, and yourself. Every day, you encourage, congratulate, celebrate, and reach toward your goal of being the best and providing the best. The Build Your Best Business Show is for you. The real stories of building a business from other owners and founders along the journey. Find the support and advice you need to successfully start, grow, manage, and exit your business. What are you going to do today to build your best business?